Hello, esteemed colleagues and members of the Board of the United Nations. My name is Larry Rhodes, and I'm here today in representation of the international organization Save the Children. Save the Children has made securing and protecting the rights of millions of children around the world our organizational mandate for over 100 years. We at Save the Children know that to ensure every child has a chance for a future, their rights must be upheld and protected. We are the voice to the silent minority that has no ability to speak on their own behalf. We are here today to discuss the grave situation of children and armed conflict. It is becoming an ever-growing concern of human rights, as millions of children are afflicted with the responsibility and resolution of countries in conflict. These young children did not enter into these conflicts with a voice and understanding of agreement or opposition. Rather, they are forced into servitude for sides that they did not willfully apply nor enlist voluntarily for. This forced integration has given way to egregious abuses, to include underpaid or slave labor, maiming, torture, rape, and even the greatest tragedy of all, murder. It has been 30 years since the international pressures finally built enough courage and support to protect these voiceless victims. With the adoption of the Convention on the Rights of Children, the international community took giant leaps to protect these muted adolescents from the removal of their human rights. These rights include for all nations to act in the best interest of the child, that every child has the basic rights of life, to their own name and identity, to be raised by their parents within a family, and to have relations with both parents even if the parents are separated. The Convention also spoke to the obligation of states to grant parents the ability to exercise their parental responsibilities, give voice to these children, allow them to express their opinions, and to have those very opinions acknowledged and acted upon, to protect the children of the future from abuse or exploitation, to respect and safeguard their privacy, and limit excess interference in the maturation of the child and their upbringing. The Convention was to provide the necessity for representation of all children in judicial disputes and forbid capital punishment towards these same children. Yet this gleaming beacon of hope is denied to a specific group of these young children. This is those millions of children living in situations of armed conflict. The Office of Children of Armed Conflict of the United Nations has reported that a verified 20,000 incidents involving sexual violence, abduction, killing, and maiming occurred last year alone to children in areas of armed conflict. But these numbers are jaded and not complete, as reporting and documentation of such violations are vastly underreported due to the access of these restricted and dangerous areas, and rightfully so. The youth of the world have become the drafting and resource pool for states and groups waging war upon one another. Children are easily accessible and thought to be an expendable commodity, to be exasperated and used as fuel to keep the machine of war fed. So what must be done? Currently, the United Nations, through the Office of Children in Armed Conflict, has launched a global campaign through the Act to Protect Children Affected by Conflict in hopes to generate a greater awareness and action to protect children affected by war. The hope of this act is to strengthen the collaboration between the United Nations, civil society, and international community to support efforts set to end and prevent the asinine and grave violations committed against children and their human rights during times of conflict. The Children and Armed Conflict Working Papers list 6 grave violations that include recruitment and use of children, killing and maiming of children, sexual violence against children, attacks on schools and hospitals, abduction of children, and denial of humanitarian access. These 6 items are to create a triggering effect that is supposed to put the United Nations in motion to engage in dialogue with the offending parties in hopes to develop action plans to halt and prevent these violations against children. But I ask, is recommendation and outlines enough? In World War I, the United Nations was created, and the major discussing point and reason of creation was to prevent and protect human rights. More importantly, to hold those individuals and states that commit egregious war crimes accountable for their inhumane actions. Why has the United Nations stuck to their mandate and continued such accountability towards these same acts against the silent minority of children? Why is the youth of our world not given the same protection from those who choose to violate their basic human rights by ensuring the same judicial prudence that is held to those in the wartime operations? Perhaps if the United Nations was to penalize these acts more severely, the international community would have the proper foundation to start putting a true end to the act and omission of using children as cannon fodder. It is time for action and accountability, as the future of our world is at stake in the treatment and care of the youth of the international community. So I plead, no, I beg, please stand strong with Save the Children in our efforts to hold those states and individuals who trivialize our international children's lives with the proper punishment and posture they truly deserve for the crimes they are committing. I thank you for your time and your efforts.